Welcome back to What You'll Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
Good morning, g'day, good evening. My name is Adam Jones. Today we're reviewing a fantastic book by Dale Carnegie, Stand and Deliver, How to Become a Masterful Communicator and Public Speaker.
So if that name sounds familiar, it's because he wrote the book How to Win Friends and Influence People and How to Stop Worrying and Start Living.
Yeah, so that's probably one of our favourite books of all time, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So this one...
It was my number one for a long time and just recently got knocked down to number 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Legend of a book.
So phenomenal stuff. Like one of his main skills is knowing how to communicate with people. So where How to Win Friends and Influence People is more than one-on-one communication, this is more for you and obviously the whole audience.
Yeah, and if you guys might have heard the story. Warren Buffett said his greatest investment was going to the Dale Carnegie public speaking course, which is based on the content from this book as
That's
well.
right. So yeah, everything in this book was basically the content for Warren Buffett's best investment he ever made. And he's the most successful investor of all time.
Yeah,
one-off, so.
Yeah, exactly. He said he just couldn't speak. He just was crippled by fear of speaking in front of people until he went to this course.
Yeah, that's right. So
big praise.
The power of speaking, man, it's huge. So it's probably the best way you can position yourself as an authority on a subject. And as soon as you're seen as a speaker, you're automatically held in very high regard due to the halo effect, I'd say.
Nice throwback to thinking fast and slow. The other thing is, when people go through these studies, they're always like public speaking is like people's number 1 or number 2 fear for a lot of people. Yeah,
and the other thing about it, I think it's one of those skills like writing. Public speaking is a skill. If you invest your time into it, you're going to be able to use it for the rest of your life.
Yep.
So I think any investment you make into public speaking is something of high value.
Yep, spot on.
So
should we get stuck in?
Yeah, mate.
Chapter 1, Keys to High Impact Delivery.
Yeah, so you go through just some basic high-level advice. So first and foremost, know what you're talking about. So master it and don't be a fraud up there. So the whole book is a lot about just being authentic.
Yeah, definitely. And he says it's not like, you want to be almost like you're having a conversation with the audience, not just speaking at them, that's for sure. And you want to create that emotional connection with the audience. One
big part of this chapter I like is do not memorize all or just even a part of your talk. Don't even write it out. So if you do, your presentation will sound like you're reading rather than speaking. So he suggests rehearsing it. I think it's his later in the book, but he suggests rehearsing it in your brain, rehearsing it in front of the mirror, rehearsing it in front of people. So just keep rehearsing it and let your talk evolve that way as opposed to writing it down and reading.
Yeah, I love it. And so as opposed to writing it down word for word, he says, say 2 weeks before you talk, sit down, pen and paper for 20 minutes and write down minimum 50 questions about your topic. And he says because asking questions stimulates the brain to think rather than making statements.
Yeah.
So if you sit down and write 50 questions, subconsciously it's going to make your brain start thinking about the answers, I guess.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
That can form your speech.
Yeah, and I think he says answer the questions 3 or 4 days before the talk.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So it's basically like, you sit with the question for a week and a half before you start answering them.
Yep. He says depth of conviction counts for more than the height of logic, and enthusiasm is worth more than knowledge. So again, it's just authenticity and enthusiasm about the subject can be more valuable than even knowledge.
Yeah, awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Love it.
So he says in debates, the person with the facts and figures. So if you think about all the debates you see on TV and all that, the person with the facts and figures usually doesn't win compared to the person who's more engaged and actually sounds the best.
Yeah, definitely. You know what I liked as well? He said there's an old saying, small minds talk about things, average minds talk about people, but great minds talk about ideas. So that's a different thing. Rather than just, basically what you said as well, apply it to that.
Yeah, bang on. Chapter 2 is what every listener really wants and what every speaker needs to know. And this is just huge on the concept of just being your natural self when you're on stage. Don't be a stinky little fraud.
Mate, and the audience. The third time you said fraud. Don't be a fucking fraud.
Well, there's a lot of speakers out there that are fucking fraud.
Definitely.
You've been done a few times.
Mate, we'll get into the magic formula, I reckon,
mate,
because I've been suckered.
So, he says the audience actually wants to like you, But you have to earn their interest and affection, and they want you to win them over.
Yeah, that's it. Another thing, he says later in the book, but he says when you're introduced as the speaker for this topic, you automatically get people's attention and interest automatically, but you've only got like 3 seconds to prove that you deserve it.
Yeah.
And if within that first 3 to 5 seconds, you can easily lose them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And so this chapter also touches on the concept, which is in How to Win Friends and Influence People. Everyone's favourite subject is themselves. So just keep that in mind with everything you say in your talk. Don't make it about you. They're just sitting there thinking about what's in it for them themselves. So just make sure everything touches on their own self-interest.
Yeah, correct. Anything else for chapter 2?
Yeah, so a real big one here is when you speak, it's really your eyes that involve your listeners in your presentation. So make sure, I remember there was a good speaker a couple of years ago, a guy called Ben Harvey, bit of a fucking fraud as well. No, he's all right. He's good. Anyway, but he had a real good skill throughout the whole day of speaking. He'd look everyone in the eye, and at the end of the day, he said, "Who saw me staring directly at them?" And there was about 1,000 in the audience, and the whole audience put their hands up. So at one stage, he looked at everyone in the eye of the audience.
That's impressive.
So
how did he do it? He surely didn't just go row by row, person.
No, he just did it. He just the whole time, every single point he made, he'd stare at someone in the face and look at them as if he was speaking directly to them. And so I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, nice.
Just another quick one. Moving to stage, walk briskly, confidently, and purposefully. And in terms of position, the lectern is your home base, and then identify a couple of positions where you can move out of when you're confident. Yeah.
The other thing he says for this is dress to match the audience's expectations.
Yeah.
So if you're speaking at a big corporate business event, don't go in with your shorts and Hawaiian shirt. And vice versa, if you're speaking at a, I don't know, what's another example? At a funeral, same deal probably. Yeah, probably. Don't go the Hawaiian shirt again.
Yeah. Fuck that up. Chapter 3, probably the most interesting one for most people is overcoming stage fright. So, mate, it has to be the biggest thing stopping people from becoming a speaker, and probably the biggest thing that creates the dip in when developing the skills to become a speaker. Yeah, definitely. And he says there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Yeah. Actually, sorry, mate, you go. Yeah, so he says he had a pretty cool story at the start. So 2 kids had a drunk, abusive, violent father, and as they grew older, they were interviewed by a psychologist. And, they were remarkably different from one another. One was like a real successful teetotaler. I don't even know what that is. I think he just doesn't drink, doesn't touch alcohol. Yep. And then the other person was a hopeless drunk like their father. But when they were asked, why did you develop the way they did, they both had the same answer. What else would you expect if you had a father like mine? Yeah. So I think this just touches on how you're going to deal with the fear of becoming a public speaker somehow. Yeah. I'll try and tie it back in that saying it's not what happens to you, but it's how you react to it. Yep. In that, as you said, the 2 people had the 2 exact same experiences, but they reacted in completely opposite ways. Yep. One saw what could happen and went the exact opposite, and one saw what had happened. He felt that's what happened to him, so he went down the exact same path. Fucking beautifully said, mate. So people, in public speaking, what we're scared of is fear of self, just standing up there and you're just plainly self-conscious, reflection of the past, poor preparation, lack of courage to try new things, and lack of encouragement from other people. Mate, I'm not sure if you did that intentionally or not, but the one you skipped was the one that I thought was the most important one. It was over concern about what others think. Yep. Did you think that was the least important? Or you just missed it? Accidentally missed it. I just reckon that's the biggest one. Is that you're scared and self-conscious because you're worried about what other people are thinking as you're speaking. Yeah, I agree. So what you can do, just quickly recognise that other people have the same fears. Try and analyse your fears. So just have a good look at it, write it all down. Probably the big one is find a compulsion to speak. Find a reason you want to deliver your message. So if your reason is bigger than, say, then you're probably going to lose your self-consciousness because your focus moves on to delivering the message as opposed to just worrying about yourself and how you're going to look. Yeah, for sure. And he says that most of the fear comes before you actually step on stage, in that you having that anxiety of what could happen, what might happen, what's going to happen when you get up on stage, that you're so paralysed by fear before you actually start. Yeah. So the secret of success, he says, is putting fright into the proper perspective and channeling this in a positive way. And he says most people make progress once they approach public speaking in an organised way. And this is especially true when overcoming fear.
Yep, nice. And what's the best way to develop confidence? Just do it. Just practice,
fucking,
just speak, just do it as much as you can. Just do it.
Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's going to go away. The more you practice and everything like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep. Nice. Chapter 4?
Chapter 4, using humour effectively.
Yeah. He says a good rule of thumb is to be slightly suspicious of anyone who takes themselves too seriously. So don't be the speaker who's taking himself too seriously. Make sure you can have a bit lighthearted, a bit of a laugh where appropriate.
He says humour fills a basic need of the audience. They actually want to laugh. They don't just want to laugh.
They need to.
They need to laugh. What's essential about being funny trying to be funny on stage is like communicate your desire to be funny to the audience. So if they don't know you're trying to be funny, then they're just confused.
Especially if you're not funny, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be funny, but you're not, and they don't think you're funny, it makes for an awkward.
Yeah,
awkward.
That's right. And then if your joke's just shit, if it just goes down like an absolute lead balloon, then make the joke yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you fuck up, you can always just laugh at yourself at how unfunny you were.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He says there's also just the expectations as well, as you mentioned, that like, say if you walk into a movie that's meant to be a comedy, you're expecting to laugh, you're expecting things to be funny.
Yep.
So if there's a slightest joke, you'll probably laugh at it. Whereas if you're walking into like a massive drama or a horror film, and you're not expecting jokes, if something funny happens, you're probably less likely to laugh at it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So the thing about jokes, they're going to be congruent with your whole presentation. They're going to be relevant.
Don't just do it for the sake of doing it, especially if you're not funny.
And another tip he's got, don't let humour dominate your identity. Because, they won't take your message probably as effectively.
Yeah, your identity is meant to be as an impactful speaker that's inspiring change, not as a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So next chapter, just before we get in the title, he says...
Mate, sorry, one more thing that I thought was funny. Well, not funny, but good. He said that don't make jokes about things people can't change. So like, I'm trying to think of an appropriate...
Mate, that's just don't be a cunt.
Don't make jokes. If someone gets hit by a car and it wasn't their fault, don't make a joke about it.
Yeah.
Unless it was you. You can make a joke about yourself.
I'm hoping most people can figure that.
You'd hope, but...
Someone goes in on a wheelchair or something.
Don't make a joke about it.
Hey,
there was... actually, probably inappropriate.
Yeah.
I was at a stand-up comedy... It's a Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
And he had a funny wheelchair joke, but I might save that one.
Yeah. So the next chapter says, this can instantly transform you from a complete novice to a thoroughly professional speaker. And that is, so it's chapter 5, stories and self. So how to win attention and respect.
Yeah, nice.
So it's using stories or anecdotes basically to connect with the audience.
Yeah, good. Clearly communicated. He says get your facts and figures right, but having that the story or anecdote to personalise it is way more effective.
Yeah, and arousing emotions in yourself as a speaker, you can bring out the same emotions in your audience. So it's just a way of connection.
He said it's the most effective way to get to the heart rather than the head. The facts and figures, people are thinking logically, but when you can tell a personal story of self-revelation, that's when you get into the emotional side.
Yeah. Mate, any more in chapter 5 for you?
No, that was a short chapter for me.
Yeah, chapter 6, motivating your listeners to action. So he says it's a good idea to just have a goal of your presentation.
Yeah, always know where you're going. Always know what you want to get out of it. Always know what you want them to get out of it. Yep. Stay on course.
Yeah. And speaker, you can gain the confidence of your audience as a speaker by just having confidence in yourself and in the way you present your ideas and conviction in the way you present it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, he said there's 3 reasons to do a talk. One is to inform, one is to entertain, and one is to inspire action. Yep. So if you don't just speak because you can, have a reason.
So if your goal is to bring about action from them, you got to think about every conscious and deliberate action we make is through desire. Mm-hmm. So he says if your teenager wants to smoke, the way you get him to not want to smoke is to ask yourself, what does he want he or she want even more than smoking? And that's how you get the Trojan horse into making them do action.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Cool, man. So chapter 7 for you.
Winning the first minute, making a positive impression. So like we said, you automatically get the attention, but you've got to then capture it and make sure that you're worthy of the attention.
Yep. And don't use humour at the very start. It's the dessert, not the main course. So don't give it too soon. You got to win. He says you got to win the privilege of having the audience on your side before you start using humour and doing all your gags.
And he says that's the two common things that people do wrong at the start. One is starting with a joke, and one is starting with an apology, like, "Oh, sorry, I'm not a very good speaker," or
it's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just that's just the idea. How often do you see it though? Someone gets up and goes, "I'm not a good speaker, but I'll make this short and sweet because I don't like speaking," and all. Just make it short and sweet, and don't. There's no purpose in saying it, is there?
Nah, it makes you think this guy's going to be shit.
Yeah.
And then halo effect again. Everything you see, you're going to be like, this guy's shit.
It's got less impact, and the whole speech just loses a lot of value.
Yeah, so don't start with a joke. Don't start with an apology.
Yep.
He did say here, know the wording and delivery of the opening exactly, didn't he?
Yep.
And the same as the closing. So you start off on the right foot. Don't start with the ums and ahs. Start with the appropriate pauses, etc.
Yep, and he suggests opening maybe with your story to capture their interest and proceed. And there's a good quote at the end of this. Make sure you've finished speaking before your audience has finished listening.
Yeah, that's a sick quote. Yeah, he says open with curiosity. Start them with that curiosity. Get them interested. Get them involved. Get them on your side. And I think there was another quote. Was it this one that I like?
It's a good. Yeah, so at the end of every chapter, there's pretty sweet quotes.
This is a Mark Twain one. The right word may be effective, but no word was ever as effective as a correctly timed pause. I like that as well.
Yeah. So
use pause with intention.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you have stage fright, just make it look like it's an intentional pause. Chapter 8, Power of Persuasion, Part 1. So if you're going to try and persuade them to get a certain belief or an idea or take an action, you've got to let them think they reach the desired conclusion on their own.
Yeah, nice. It's sort of, I'm trying to think what a specific, a lot of books.
Yeah.
Where if they think it's their idea, they're much more likely to believe it and take action
upon
it than if you're telling them what to do.
Yeah, if you're jamming it down their throat, then they're not going to, their gag reflexes are going to just shove it back up on them.
Open the door a crack and let them push it open and walk through.
Yep. Should we get into the 5 ways of persuasion?
Yeah.
Just briefly, because I don't think we fully...
we didn't understand it ourselves.
Not fully. So, number 1, invention. So, it's the process of developing and refining your arguments. Arrangement. So, it's structure, arrange and organise your arguments for maximum impact. Style. So, deliver your style appropriate to the audience. You're doing a technical presentation at work or you're doing a best man's speech. Memory. So, learn and memorise your speech, not word for word, but just the content and maybe using cues like slides. And delivery, practice the way you deliver your speech through pronunciation, tone, and know when you're going to give pauses and maybe stress on certain words and so on.
Nice. You did that well, I reckon. You were across a lot better than I was. And then he said there was 4 different ways you can sort of make this happen. One is think combination, so the combination of 2 different ideas. One is think adaptation, so adapting something else. One is think substitution, and the final one is think big.
Yeah.
So he says like Carl Sagan, who was all about the cosmos and the galaxy and everything, he was saying you always use billion and trillion as much as possible, so make things sound as big as possible. So use big words, big numbers.
Big.
Think big.
Yeah, I love it. Just think big. Chapter 9 is Power of Persuasion, Part 2. I really like this idea. So every idea, concept or conclusion that actually enters your mind will be completely believed unless hindered by a conflicting idea.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you present an idea to someone, you don't have to convince them of the idea's truth, but you have to prevent the conflicting ideas from arising.
Very nice.
So it's a totally different way of looking at it.
Yeah, very nice. Definitely. I like that a lot.
So if no contradictory information is coming, they'll just completely believe it. Yeah. So just be aware of, maybe you have a good think about what conflicting ideas are arising in their brain as you do your talk.
Yeah. And that also definitely you yourself shouldn't raise the contradictory things then as well.
Yeah. Any more on that, man?
He talks a little bit about worrying. So obviously Dale Carnegie's got the other book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And he says that a lot of people's worries are things that aren't ever going to happen or things that are in the past that can't be changed. And he says only 8% are legitimate worries. So, yeah, stop worrying, start living.
Yeah. Bang on. And so just some other little tips for the power of persuasion. Repetition has persuasive power.
Yep.
Also use contrast to persuade.
Yep.
So, if you're talking about something like climate change, maybe paint the picture of the future of all the water rising and your mum swimming to the milk bar or whatever. I don't know. And then paint that to where the picture that you want everyone to go. Another one, proximity, who, we saw Tony Robbins, he does that very well. He'll come up to you and be, pretty much standing on your toes.
Yeah.
And whilst he's delivering a few one-liners.
And he smells so good.
Yeah,
what
that cologne.
He smells so bloody good.
Fuck, good to find out what that cologne was.
Yeah, exactly. And it says here, much to what you were saying, use tangible, vivid words and images. Don't use hypotheticals and abstractions so much. Use suspense, use conflict, because he says people are good at recognising differences rather than recognising inherent qualities.
Yeah.
So use something that they can contrast against, as you mentioned as well.
Yeah. So chapter 10, should we get into the magic formula?
The magic
formula.
So
if anyone's been fucking taken on a ride, spent money on a course or something that was just an absolute...
anyone out there?
What was your one?
I got sucked into a foreign exchange trading one. He nailed it with this magic formula. He fucking nailed it.
Yeah. So it's... I don't know if the listeners have noticed or been to a seminar like this, but all the speakers, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
And this is the fucking magic formula that suckers people into spending on money on shit they don't need, basically. So use this for the better of the world, I think.
Yeah.
So, number one is share a vivid personal experience that's relevant to the action you ultimately want your listeners to take.
Mm-hmm. And so to relate that to some of these, the frauds you've been scattering throughout, is that they'll say like, oh, I was just like you. I was fat. I was broke. I was in thousands of dollars of debt.
Depressed, and I was crying.
Nothing.
I had no money. And all that. So they just paint the picture like
of themselves being shit. Yeah,
basically being shit. And then number two, call directly upon your audience to take that single, well-defined action.
So they were useless. They were on the depths of fucking whatever, depression and suicide and whatever, until they found foreign exchange trading.
Yeah,
and everything changed.
Yeah, they found a speaker.
Yeah,
come in, and I was in. I had no money, but I had a credit card. So then they eliminate the money excuse like that. But I had a credit card.
I took action.
I took action. I got 6 credit cards maxed out for $30,000.
Yeah,
and then I took action, and then. Part 3 of it is after they took action, clearly and convincingly describe the benefit that listeners will gain by taking the action you desire. So then, they spend the $30,000 on the credit card, and then they took this course, and then they became a millionaire and
got a hot wife.
Travelled to Europe.
Yeah, travelling the world with the fucking yachts and jet skis and helicopters, and now their life is just immeasurably better.
Every fucking one does it.
It's the same.
Everyone.
It's the same content, the same strategy.
Every single one, man.
Structure.
From Tony Robbins does it as well.
Definitely, yeah.
But could be
works.
True. Could be true, but I think they might chuck a bit of salt and pepper on there.
Oh, definitely.
Every time.
That's the magic formula. First is you share that vivid personal experience that's relevant, obviously, and then second is you got that single well-defined action, and third the clear benefits after taking that action.
Fucking love it.
It works.
Man. It works. Yeah. Mate, you found out that the hard way.
Yeah,
Chapter 11, dealing with questions and answers.
Yep.
So this can be a very influential part or memorable part of the talk. So basically the biggest takeaway from this is just give a lot of respect to the talker. They've sat there and listened to you for an hour or whatever. So give them a lot of respect, eye contact, and and with the answers, if you don't know what the answer is, just say you don't know.
Yeah, don't make up something, because then you're susceptible to being called a fraud, aren't you?
Yeah.
Don't make up something that you don't know is true. Just admit that you don't know it.
Yeah, and have eye contact, and just be sincere. Try and connect with them at the end.
Yeah, that's everything from that chapter for me.
And chapter 12, how to conclude a presentation. So he says this is an extremely important part where you should probably know the words or certain words you're going to use at the end, and know how you're going to deliver that, and rehearse the ending, because it's what people leave with.
Yeah, that's it. The end's probably going to be the most memorable because it's the last thing they hear. So that's how they remember you. So don't end. You could ruin a perfectly good speech by having a crap ending.
Yeah, he says don't finish it like appreciate and thank your audience at some stage during the speech. You know, just show your appreciation for being on stage, but do not end with a thank you. Thank you for listening. It's just fucking weak.
Yeah, it is weak. The other thing he says is don't say in conclusion or in summary and then summarize it, because as soon as people say here in summary or in conclusion, they know the talk's over and they're just concluding. So that's when they switch off.
Yeah.
And so when you say, just to summarize everything we've talked about, people stop listening from that point on. Whereas if you're going to summarize it, just fucking do it. Don't say, I'm about to summarize everything.
Yeah.
So then people are still engaged.
Mate, that's me done. But
yep.
I really like this book. I think it's a 5-star for me.
5-star?
Yeah, man, because it's... I looked at doing the Dale Carnegie course myself, Googled it. It's got, $3 or $4 grand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quite expensive, and this book's $20 or $30. So I'd suggest pick this book up, read it, and then maybe ask for speaking engagements at a Toastmasters or something, and you might get a similar value to the $3 grand from Dale Carnegie's.
That's so true.
Yeah,
that's a good advice. I'd say is read it first, practice it first.
Yeah, and then just go out there, and if you want to become a speaker and you're scared, just go out there and fucking do it. There's probably not a better feeling than being scared of doing something or thinking you can't do it, than using your brain to find a strategy to get over it, and once you get to the other side and you deliver a good presentation, it'll be a good feeling.
Nice. I'd say it wouldn't be a 5-star for me. It'd be a high 4, strong 4. But it's not at the how to win friends and influence people level for me. Yeah. But it was nonetheless very good and definitely worth reading, definitely worth practicing, for sure. Definitely worth getting good at public speaking. Yeah, man. Whatever you do.
Yeah. Fucking, should we sing the song of the communicator?
Absolutely.
Communication. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling it.
Stand and deliver by Dale Carnegie.
Keys to high impact delivery. Know what you're talking about. Purpose of your speech. Leave your audience wanting more. Your goal should be authentic view of the audience.
That's how you become a masterful communicator and a good public speaker.
Don't write your speech. Rehearse in your head. Rehearse to your friends and rehearse to the mirror.
Overcome stage fright. Most of that fear is before you get on stage.
Look your audience in the eye. Speak to them their favorite topic. Their favorite topic is themselves.
Be a fraud. Be a fraud. Talk about yourself. Spend lots of money. Credit card. Millions. Millionaire.
I was that, and I was sitting there, and I had no money until I came.
Foreign exchange trading. Property. Real estate.
Get those fucking men. Get their money. Credit cards. Ha ha ha. Fuck your life up.